one of the reasons that I typically have trouble justifying reading fiction, aside from the fact that I'm not a terribly fast reader, is the fact that honestly most people are not creative. And a lot of this goes back to, I remember when I was in high school, and I mean really it started in junior high when the PlayStation came out, but by the time I was in high school and PlayStation had been around for a couple of years, people finally started creating games where you could kind of create your own character or create your own whatever. Now, theoretically, people, that had already gone back to, say, like Mario Paint. But character customization started becoming a bigger thing with the PlayStation. And one of the things that I noticed when I would talk to friends and acquaintances about some of these games that had this character creation stuff, the first thing they would always say is, "Oh, I love that character creation stuff. I created the such and such character from this property so I could play that character in this game." And my brain always immediately went to, why would you create somebody else's character? That doesn't make any sense. Why would you not create your own character? Obviously, aside from creating another property's character, you might think, well, create yourself in that world, and that's certainly one of the ways to do that, and that's certainly the way that I tended to do things. But then once you get the satisfaction out of that, then you start going on and going, well, what other kind of characters would I want to play? If this is an adventure game, what kind of adventurer would I be? Or if this is a fighting game, what kind of fighter would I want to play? And it's not necessarily about self-insertion, but it's about exploring the possibilities of that world, that setting, and all of that. And in general, I just find that most people are not good at that. Like the grand majority, even so-called creatives, spend so much time rehashing other people's work rather than doing their own work that it's a huge turnoff. Pulls you right out of the narrative. I remember, a pair of fiction books that I read. I read Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha, which it's a short read, and it's a philosophical tale and all that. It seemed worth reading because it wasn't going to be long, and it was actually an exploration of some thematic elements, and I thought it was decent. And then somebody else came along and said, "Oh, you should read The Alchemist." And when I read The Alchemist, I'm like, this is just Siddhartha in a different setting. It was the same story. Completely. Now, Paulo Coelho may have never read Siddhartha and just happened to write the same story, but I have a feeling that's not true. I have a feeling that he just said, I can tell that story, and then just told it in a different setting. And while it's true that there are no new stories, just new audiences, it's a little too one for one, for my liking. So I have a lot of trouble with people just not being creative. Like one of my biggest pet peeves, especially when it comes to fantasy, and, I'm going to pick on Avatar: The Last Airbender. I love the series, and we have to admit, it's made for children, so being, overly unique might actually be troublesome for children because it will be less relatable. But when you have an entire world filled of amalgamated animals, where everything is a mixture of two animals, turtle ducks and sloth bears and things like that. But then they did, they did recognize the absurdity of that and joke when they brought up that there was just a bear, and they kind of went back and forth of this bear or that bear. Nope, just a bear. They're like, oh, that's weird. So, I mean, at least they admitted that it was a joke, but on the other side of it, it's just like, if you were to write that story for an educated adult audience looking for a good fantasy tale, that's not how you do things. Amalgamated animals is not how you create a new bestiary. And yes, in the real world, we have animals named after other types of animals, you know, kangaroo rat and things like that. But that's because those other individual animals exist and we just didn't have a better naming convention for them. Not that the world is full of just amalgamated animals from another world. Like you have to be more creative than that. And again, you know, if you're writing children's fiction where things have to be simplified a little bit, just due to comprehension issues and experience issues and all that, you can be somewhat forgiven for it, just like Avatar is. But on the other side of it, like, you have to work on being more creative, right? Things exist in a place, people exist, you know, in a setting. Everything happens in a setting, in an environment, right? Evolution happens based on environmental pressures. You know, all of these things are interconnected, right? It's that deterministic chaos theory of it. Everything is kind of a cascade effect of this counterbalance of competition and resources and consequences. And, you know, so you have to kind of go through some of those layers. And granted, right, nobody's asking you to create a brand new world with a brand new bottom-up evolutionary tree and all that. That might be a little too much. But you really need to think beyond just, let's put two things together and call it good, right? A story full of mashups is not really a story, and it's not really creative. And I see the same thing, you know, in tabletop gaming. Oh, I want to play this character from this property. Why? It's just flat out not creative and quite honestly stupid, and I want no part of it. You know, it's one thing to draw inspiration. It's another thing to just outright rip off. I remember, and I'm certain that Straczynski did not come up with this, but I remember watching one of the Babylon 5 movies with commentary on, and Straczynski specifically mentioned, I think this was Third Space. And, you know, he was talking about the kind of Cthulhu-esque monster that was in it and all that. And one of the things that he mentioned, just kind of offhand, is the idea that good writers steal, bad writers borrow. And when I got to meet him, and we were in a Q&A session, I asked him about that, and he didn't really answer my question. I'll address that in another video. He seemed a little not happy that day, for whatever reason. But, so he could have just been in a bad mood. And maybe he just looked at me as somebody who was not his cup of tea, and that's fine too. We are on different ends of the political spectrum, so whatever. But the fact is that concept, good writers steal, bad writers borrow. And really what that concept is not that you go and plagiarize somebody else's work. What he's saying is, what happens when you steal something, right? You are taking it from possession of somebody else and you are making it your possession. And provided you get away with it, making it your possession, it is now yours to do with what you want. You are no longer treating it like you are having to take care of it and maintain it in the shape it was for the other person. It is now yours to use and adjust and modify and whatever as you will. So the idea is, if you get inspired by something, take it whole hog and shape it and mold it into something that is yours. You actually take possession of it and then move on with it. You know, you will never be free of influence, right? And that's not what I'm saying at all. You can't assume that you're gonna create something out of nothing. Everything is referential, but you have to be able to take possession of it and move it into your own realm. Back in the Pulp Fiction days, guys like Robert E. Howard and H.P. Lovecraft encouraged people to take their settings, the Hyborian Age and and the Cthulhu mythos, and just kind of do something with it, write stories within it. It wasn't seen as doing their work for them. It wasn't seen as plagiarism or anything. It was encouraged just, hey, I've created a setting and there's this rich world we can storytell in. Let's do something with it. Lovecraft wasn't saying go and rewrite my stories. He was saying take the setting and do something with it. Robert E. Howard wasn't saying rewrite Conan or rewrite Kull. He was saying take this setting and do something with it. And I think that's the important thing, right? You draw inspiration from the natural world, from other people's creative works, sure, but then take possession of it and do something with it. You have to be more creative. So that's it. It's just a bit of a rant for today, but it's just a big pet peeve. Stop borrowing, start stealing. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Good journey.